For years, there has been an ongoing debate about what to do about the declining fortunes of Main Street, McCulloch Boulevard. The discussions have ranged from complete renovation, complete redesign, to the accomplishments of a group called RUDAT a few years ago. A group of professional architects who came to town and spent a few days here studying things and then produced a report detailing what they thought should be done to breathe new life into this commercial district. Well, that came and went. Years have now gone by with virtually little change. Well, now another step is being taken by a local business group headed by Alex Ross, a local insurance agent. That group is determined to breathe new life into McCulloch Boulevard with a new group. This group has established what they call an economic district. And with that, they plan to change McCulloch Boulevard forever. Meet Nancy Horman, principal and founder of Horman & Associates, a Tempe-based urban marketing and management firm. Her website describes her as having 35 years of experience developing innovative and cost-effective marketing and management programs for downtown and tourism organizations. As president and executive director, she led the job of bringing downtown Tempe's Mill Avenue area back to life. The website reports that she worked to create a public-private partnership that changed what once was perceived as a college bar destination with over 200,000 square feet of empty retail space to having an over 90% occupancy rate. She's done similar work in a number of other cities, including Dallas and Raleigh, North Carolina. At the behest of Alex Ross and other Havasu Main Street business leaders, Ms. Horman met with city officials and a number of other McCulloch Boulevard business and property owners, and then made this presentation about her view of what needs to be done here.
To do a feasibility and come up with a plan for a business improvement district in downtown Lake Havasu. We have been working on this for a while. We went through the first stages of this in order to figure out whether or not we felt this was something that the majority of people were leaning towards wanting to look at it. Not that we're saying that this is something that everybody wants to do, but what we did was we went through a whole process, and we're going to talk a little bit about that very quickly. But for the last couple of days, as we went through the process, we've been meeting with property and business owners downtown to get their feedback, and we've listened and we've made some changes, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about where we were, where the changes are. And this is, as I've said before, this is a discussion. This is not a presentation. Please raise your hand and chime in if you have any questions, because we want this to be interactive. Very quickly, for those of you who don't know what a management district is, it is a district that provides services above and beyond what the city provides. Right now, we're going to work with the city to find out what the services are that are offered down here, and we're going to not be trying to duplicate anything. This is a public-private partnership. This is working together to make sure that you are doing things above and beyond what the city does in order to enhance your downtown district. It's concentrated in a geographical area, and it's a special assessment on property owners, which is a line item on your property tax bill. That's how it's billed. So the other thing about a district like this, we talked about it before, is that it's governed by those who pay. Those of you who pay into the district are the ones that vote on the work plan, vote on the budget, and make sure that the money is being spent the way the majority of the people would like to see it happen. So we've seen over the years, we talked about it before, that there's improved property values, but there's two biggest things that you get out of a district is the increased sales. It really does drive more business to the area and the things that you're doing, and also the collective clout. It is so much easier to go and speak as one voice for your downtown than 14 different people showing up at City Hall or talking to people saying, I want this, I want this. Make it easy for a public-private partnership to work together by having a cohesive voice for your downtown. What we've done so far is we've been speaking with business and property owners now over the last year, actually. We've done several iterations of this and talking to different people over the last year. We did a feasibility of the district. Would this work? Can you do this here? We came up with the conclusion that we could move forward to see whether or not this would happen. Like I said before, that doesn't mean this is a done deal or that we know that everybody is for this, but we got very positive feedback when we first started. We did some service priorities. We went and we looked at what the boundaries were and what the services that would work in those boundaries to enhance what all of you want to do in this. This is not, we didn't come up with what the service plan would be. All the stakeholders down here have had input in what they felt was needed in the area. We worked on the budget and we came up with a plan. We've been here for the last 2 days and we have presented the plan to quite a few different business and property owners. I think we had about 45 in the last couple of days, and we listened. And today we're going to talk about the services and some of the things that we might be changing a little bit and changing some of the boundaries within the district. And we wanted to now come back to you, show you what we heard, present it to you, and then get your feedback to say, are we going in the right direction on this? And where should we go from here? So very quickly, the outcome of the first round of what we did, the priorities that came up, and we'll do this, I'm not going to go through each of them individually, we're going to flip through this, but the priorities, there were about 25 priorities, so we took the top 11 priorities. Now just know through this, we might not wind up doing something for all 11 priorities. They may be kind of portioned out a little bit year by year, adding things year by year, so it keeps the assessments down lower. But one thing we heard over and over again was hire a downtown professional. Not just hire somebody to be the executive director for this, but hire someone who has had experience in running downtown organizations to be able to take you to the next level. And that's a big difference, is getting someone who has had experience, who has learned from their own mistakes, is not going to come here and make those mistakes again, but really take you to the next level, because you've done an outstanding job of volunteerism here. The volunteers in the Main Street organization and some of the property owners down here, is amazing what you've accomplished on an all volunteer basis without a consistent source of income. So you've done a great job of begging, and you've done a great job of moving forward as far as you could with what I always say, you've got your hands tied behind your back and a gun to your head and said, now make downtown better. What we're trying to do is make it a little bit easier for you to move forward and do these things. So the executive director was the highest priority from every single focus group that we did. And as we've gone through this with everybody this week, it has remained a priority from most people we spoke to keep that in the budget. Traffic calming, and this is something that is a priority, but not really a cost. This is where your public-private partnerships come in. This is working with the city to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But what people were very adamant about was stop McCullough Boulevard from being a through street, a highway. How do you do something to do some traffic calming so that when cars are coming down the street, you can benefit from them finding your stores, seeing what's here instead of going through as fast as they can. So working with the city, we talked about coming up with some programs to help calm the traffic in your priorities of calming the traffic. And that also was nothing that changed in that. Business recruitment and retention, doing a retail mix plan, finding out what you have, what's missing, and then having an executive director that can help go out and recruit the right retailers. We know that landlords want to fill their space, they want to get the rent, and we don't want to say to them, we don't want you to rent to that person if you do not have an alternative that fits in with your retail mix plan. So the idea is to say, if we need a boutique here and we're going to go out and try to find a boutique, we will then bring it, the director would bring it back to that building owner or that landlord and give them an alternative if there's something that is, but also to help find the right retailers and bring them here, not taking commissions, not taking away from any brokers or not taking away from the landlords, but working together to find the right retail mix. And this is something that has happened in almost every city we've worked in. We're not going to tell you this is easy and oh yeah, we can go out and what we talk about in retail recruitment, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. It really takes a long time to change the face of your retail, and that's something that was very important to a lot of people. Signage, working together with the CDB and what's going on with the signage program around, but enhancing that within your downtown and maybe putting directories on the street of where you can find the different shops or the different restaurants. This was something that when talking to people, we moved this to possibly the second year because it's going to take a while for the organization to get up and running. We don't think this is going to happen in the first year, so we can reduce the budget and do this in the second or third year. Parking management, working together with all the property owners in the city to come up with a shared parking plan. This is common in a lot of cities, and we heard it here. There are agreements that were back from the 80s. There are other agreements from something else. It's just working together to coordinate all those agreements, working with the property owners to see how we can come up with a shared parking program that works for everyone and that can protect the parking for your patrons as well as for your workers that are here. But really, a really important part about this is if you're going to attract new businesses or you want to attract some people down here and maybe the buildings don't have parking in them, having that kind of cohesiveness to work with all the property owners to find everybody the parking they need. And that's a common thing, and also was something that people wanted. We talked about facade improvements, whether or not there was grants that could come up with it, but we also talked about doing things like bringing a merchandiser in to help review all the windows so that when you're walking down the street, it really looks great and inviting. And having the shop owners keep their lights on at night so that when people are walking down and going to the restaurants and bars, they see the great stores that are here and they have a really good experience. I know when I go out to dinner, even if the stores aren't open, I love to window shop and go up and down the street and discover what's there. So it's working together to do improvements. This is not something that is a budget line item in the budget. Event management and event production. Coming up with a return on investment model to figure out whether the events work for the downtown, work for the businesses. If you're bringing an outside producer in who's going to make money off of their event, is it going to take money away from the businesses down here? Is this the type of event you want? And a little later we're going to talk about street closures and minimizing the time that a street can be closed, but really managing the events, knowing whether the events work for you, and then also doing some street activation. Trying to come up with a plan with the city to say, we only want to close McCullough Boulevard X amount of times a year. Let's not do it every week because it doesn't work for everybody, but it does work to have some of these events here in the residual business of people discovering you and knowing that you're here. So no one wanted to stop the events, but everybody wanted to manage what was happening down here and making sure that what comes in the future works for everybody down here. And also, we did put some money in the budget to do activities, to do some street activation, which doesn't always mean every event doesn't have to close a street. But what drives people to your area is activities and experience. And creating an experience that is beneficial to everyone really will drive more people down here. And so we have kept that in the budget to do some more activation of your streets. Marketing and branding, we listen to everybody, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now between the CVB, the Main Street is doing some things, and we realize that some of the things we proposed were premature again. We have to wait for some of the things to happen in order for it to move forward. So we did hear that people did want to do business directories, and they wanted to enhance a website, but really we don't need to create another website. What you need to do is be in partnership and work with the Main Street group who's already doing that to enhance it, which saves a lot of money. So we reduced the marketing budget down a bit, and because you may not start until mid-year, in the first year we reduced it because you would not have to print as many of these directories as you would for a full year. So again, we brought the budget down a little. Social media is something that is the key for most everything in these days, and social media is almost free. You're really talking about enhancing a Google search or something like that is the only cost. So I think we have $1,000 in the budget for social media. It's not a huge expense to anyone. But once again, all of these things that we're talking about that don't have budget line items, it's because your executive director will be the one who is responsible for doing this. So you're talking about your executive director is doing the things here that are not costing you, but they are costing you in that director's salary. Capital improvements, like we said and everything, everybody's number one choice was finish the arch. So we have earmarked some money for finishing the arch, but we've talked to people about doing some art contests in order to get designs for it, maybe working with ASU, doing some public art, working with the university, and getting a more attractive ambiance or a reason for people to come up and see the downtown. But the whole idea is letting the rest of the city know that when you have visitors coming in, that they know that downtown exists and they come here. We always say that the visitors don't want to hang out where visitors are. The visitors want to go where the locals go. So the most important thing is to make your downtown your community gathering place so that the community embraces downtown, that it's their downtown. We say there's neighborhoods all over Lake Havasu City, but downtown is everybody's neighborhood. And that's what you want to be able to convey and bring people to celebrate together in their community gathering place of downtown. When we had proposed, in the future doing some sound systems or anything, what we heard yesterday was Main Street had already had some money earmarked for that. So we pulled it right out of the budget. We're not trying to double dip or duplicate anything, and this is a partnership. This is a partnership between the businesses, the property owners, and the city, and it's important that everybody be working together and not duplicating the effort. So this is not an elimination of anything. This is a creating a partnership of the businesses and the property owners is what a business improvement district does. So beautification, people talked about doing some hanging baskets, adding to what's already been done on the streetscape, but what's the most important part of that is if you add stuff to this, you better be able to maintain it. So we put some money in there to actually do a little bit more beautification and to maintain it. But the other thing was holiday decorations. Whoa, that rose to the top. And we didn't put a lot of money in there, but it's one of your busiest times of year. It's a great way to make this more of a community gathering place by making the holidays feel wonderful down here. So we left budgets in there for the holiday decorations, as well as it goes down every year because you just have to pay for some of them up front, and then each year it's more enhancing that but doing the installation. So those were the things that we heard. This is what we went through. And another thing we heard a lot about were the street closures, and this is common in almost every city that we work in, especially because most events are on the weekends. The city comes out and brings the barricades, drops the barricades, closes the streets. Then they have a set time that they know to come back, pick them up, and take them away. And that's the way it works in a lot of cities. But what's happened lately was people wanted to make sure that that wasn't prolonged if you needed to. And when an event closed down, instead of waiting for several hours when people would come back to take the barricades up and open the streets again, there's some things that can be done that we've seen in other cities that are not expensive and have worked tremendously. First one being the top up there, picture up there is in Maiden Lane in San Francisco. They have some very pretty gates that they just closed when they close the street. They open the gates on the sides when the event is over or when they want to open the street again, and they're not waiting, and people aren't having to drop off barricades, pick up barricades. But the thing that has worked well, and I think there's about 7 cities that I know of right now that have already put these in, and they're going to be doing is at the bottom there, and I don't know if you can see it, those are bollards. And what they are is they come up out of the ground, and they are done manually. You pull them up and you turn and they stay up. And that's how you can close your street. It looks very nice. And as soon as you want to open your street again, you walk over, you turn them, and you put them back down again. So you're not waiting at the mercy for people who you've scheduled to come at a certain time and you need them to come earlier. So you're a lot more flexible. So we left those in, but not for the first year, because we know that it's going to take some time to get this organization up and running. So we had the stakeholders come in the last couple of days, and we listened to what they liked, what their concerns were, and we came up with a couple of things. We had originally said that we had a budget of about $174,000. Without compromising what you wanted to do, there's so many things that are happening by the partners to downtown that we were able to reduce the budget in the first year to about $155,000. And really, we're not taking anything off the table. It's just working in partnership. We'll get you the same thing, but you're not duplicating efforts. So that was the first thing. We brought that down in order to lower everyone's assessments. These were the original boundaries that we looked at. There are 3 zones in that boundary. McCullough is the main zone 1 in there, and they are assessed at the highest rate. The second zone is the purple zone, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and those are off of McCullough Boulevard. And the third zone, zone 3, was teal. We are not going to be putting zone 3 in this district. You never know, in the next couple of years, we call it bid envy. Those streets might see how successful you've been and want to be part of the district, and anybody who is not in the district but is contiguous and around the district can pay for what we call a fee for service. They can be part of the district voluntarily if they want to. So we went and talked to everyone, walked around again after that, and the changes we're going to make, and I'm going to I hope I can, it was very hard to do this with just a PowerPoint, but what we did, if you look at the bottom of Zone 2 on both Scott and Mulberry, we have eliminated the parcels that face Swanson. They are no longer going to be in the district because they have their orientation to a street that is not being assessed. So those parcels we are dropping out of the district. Then where you see those purple boxes, those were places that we saw before that were in the McCullough zone, And what we've done is move them into Zone 2 because they do not front McCullough Boulevard. We took the shambles and took the back buildings and put them in the purple zone. We put the bowling alley in the purple zone, and we did the parcel that's on Acoma, facing Acoma, is now in the purple zone instead of in the yellow zone. So those were the things that we heard. We thought that it made sense to change them to that. And we're working on that now to try to change the assessment methodology to work for this. So what we did was, this was the methodology that we worked with the engineers to come up with that they deemed was fair and equitable on the type of budget that you all asked for. So keeping it down and making sure what we did, as we talked, some of us talked about this before, they felt that the executive director benefited everyone equally within the district, that everybody gets some great benefit about having this person. So there is a per parcel charge that pays only for the executive director. So the per parcel charge on McCullough is one amount, and these amounts might change. They're probably going to go down a little bit as we are modifying the budget and the work plan. But the Zone 2 assessments are assessed at 80% of what the Zone 1 assessments are. And we are, because the engineers felt that the Zone 2 did not get as much benefit as the properties that were on Zone 1, in Zone 1. And then the other, doing that, they suggested that we use assessed value to calculate the rest of it, to spread it fair and equitably. But what we heard yesterday from some people, and what we're going to go back and look at, is that we're going to look at another assessment methodology that was thrown out. We need to have it vetted by the engineer and make sure that it is fair and equitable. But they were more interested in seeing, instead of on the assessed value, having this calculated on the building square footage. So we have to play with that. We do not have all the building square footage numbers at this point. We can get them off of the county's website, but we're going to look at that and see if the assessments are spread a little bit more equitably. If they're not, we're going to go back to the other one. But if it works, we're going to look at things that will work best for you guys and that you feel really good. But it's important that we have to have the engineer design this, because it has to be deemed fair and equitable. I mean, you have to get owners that represent 51% of the assessed value in the district. So if the assessed value of the whole district is $2 million, you would have to get signatures from property owners that own $1,001 in order for the council to consider enacting this district. But we don't recommend that you just get that 51% and go to council. If you don't have an overwhelming majority of people who are for this, you do not want, and the council does not want to shove this down anyone's throat. So our goal is to make sure we have at least 65% of both of those before you go to council to enact this district. Some of the things that we talk about, that there's some alternatives that you can do. If you get this done and we get to council at a certain time, it does still take almost a year for the district to see their money goes from the county on the property tax bill to the city to the organization. It doesn't happen that quickly. It's a cycle. We may finish the cycle of getting the petitions done, but we may not do it in a timely fashion to where the money's going to flow as quickly as possible. So there's a couple of alternatives. Some districts have borrowed money from the bank against the assessments that are coming in order to start sooner. Some districts do a private collection, which you can do for the first year, where it starts sooner, and that private collection can be done with lien capability, so it's the same thing as if it was on the property tax bill. Or sometimes you can borrow them, see whether or not you want to do this, but we do want to get it done as soon as you can feasibly be done, and then see if we can start the district quicker than if we waited for the money to come from the county.
As Ms. Horman stated, this assessment district, which is clearly just another name for a tax on Main Street property owners, would only be presented to City Council for their approval if a clear majority of property owners agree in writing to support the plan. That number was not specified, but Ms. Horman stated that it would have to be clearly higher than 50% plus one, and that this process could take time to implement, perhaps as long as a year or even 2. Jim Matthews, Havasu Video News.
Our budget was $4 million.